Archlich finally turned the thriving kingdom into ruins. His army of undead didn't spare a single human in sight and shredded them to pieces. The only person left standing on humanity's side was the Empire's strongest swordsman, Oz, who already looked worse for wear and was on the brink of giving up. But this story isn't about that knight, nor is it about the Archlich. It's the story of Damien Haxon working under Archich's command as his Death Knight. He was just a normal human until Archlich cast dark magic and took control of him. But before Archich could savor the crown he earned after countless deaths, my guy had already broken free from Archich's control. He unleashed an attack that struck Archich right in the chest, so hard even his demon generals couldn't shield him. Damien Hawken had finally moved with his own will, much to Archlich's shock, who had erased Damien's consciousness completely. But as fate would have it, Archlich was never able to fully factory reset our boy's mind. Some part of his soul and mind stayed intact, dormant in his head, watching his own body out of control. Under Archich's command, his demon generals launched an attack on Damien, only to get obliterated by a single strike from him. In a last-ditch effort, Archlich played his trump card and summoned God knows how many undead. The entire horde charged toward Damien, aiming to claim his life. But once again, all it took was a single hand gesture to incinerate the undead into smithereens. Seeing this, Archlich could tell his end was near. He had unintentionally created a monster so peerless it could rival the gods themselves. To save his own skin, which Archich didn't really have, he started smoothing things over with mere words. Keep in mind, even if he failed to sway Damien with talk, he planned to transfer his soul into another vessel. I don't think Damien was going to let this bastard off the hook, at least not after losing the people he loved. To kill this sack of bones, Damien went so far as to create a technique that severs souls themselves. At first, Archlich refused to believe such a technique existed. Still, he tried to make a run for it before it was too late. But it was already too late because my guy had finally unleashed his final strike, hitting Archlich squarely in the chest. At first, nothing happened, much to this bony head's relief, convinced the technique was just a bluff. But he soon learned it wasn't. Some painful magic mojo took hold, and he exploded right there, leaving only his empty skull behind. Even that remaining skull was crushed to bits by Damien. With his revenge complete, Damien lost the will to live. He literally killed his own family while under that bastard control. He brutally slaughtered them, while some part of him helplessly watched his loved ones die. The only way he could reunite with those he killed was after death. With that in mind, he took his own life. But it wasn't the end. His prayers were heard, and he opened his eyes again. The person in front of him waking up is his sweet older sister. Bro thinks he is in heaven watching his sister, though the unusual thing is that she looks way younger. She overhears him calling her younger and is flattered right on the spot. For a moment, she thinks he is trying to get on her good side, just so she can save him from their father's scolding. Being the good sister she is, she agrees to save his ass in desperate times. She eventually runs off to the mansion, not before telling him to get inside, since it will soon start raining. Damon takes note of the mansion standing tall right in front of him, the same mansion he had burned down to ashes. He is clueless about what is happening. The closest thing to describe his condition is that he is dreaming. Or maybe everything he had endured in the past was just a big dream, and he has finally woken up in reality. But he is sure he will find out soon enough. He grabs a tree branch off the ground and stands in front of a giant rock to unleash his knightly prowess he had while he was acting as Death Knight. He takes his stance, and, with the help of his past teachings, he pokes the hard rock with that mere tree branch. For a second, nothing happens. Then the giant rock shatters into bits and pieces, confirming that what he went through in the past wasn't just a vivid dream. This realization cracks him up, causing him to pull a classic light Yagami laughing pose. He slumps down after laughing so hard, the weight of realization sinking in. What he is witnessing isn't a mere dream, nor was his past experience just a dream. He has returned to the past, a realization that hits him deeply. Let's have a little background on Damien's life at his current age. As far as Damien could recall, he was a clown who always brought shame to the family name with his antics. His father was always there to remind him how pathetic and loser-like a son he was, someone who only contributed by tarnishing the family's name. His antics only brought misery to the people around him. He stomped all over his family's future and even made sure their household properties got confiscated. Because of his talent for bringing shame and ruin, his father kicked him out. Among all the family members, the only person who still saw Damien in a positive light was his older sister. He never understood why she was always so supportive and concerned, even though he ruined her life by destroying her engagement. Before he left, she offered him some money to ease his journey. He hesitated, but eventually snatched the sack of money and ran away as fast as he could, because he could barely look at her without getting embarrassed. After running away from the family, he finally realized how wrong and cursed his existence really was. The shame and guilt gnawed at him, causing him to have profound. Back in the present, Damien sits on his knees, racking his brain, trying to figure out what triggered his regression. Sure, he wanted to apologize to the rest of his family, but to think his prayers were actually heard, that he really came back to the past, is kind of insane. Only a divine miracle could explain this. He looks down at his trembling hands, still shaking from the recoil of the technique he just executed. The technique is called wave breaking, a move that amplifies the impact of a blow several-fold. He learned it after defeating the knight, known as the Castle Wall Destroyer. Suddenly, a familiar voice grabs his attention, a concerned servant calling out to him. The guy is clearly here with urgent news, otherwise he wouldn't be dragging his heavy body all the way out here in a full sprint. Damon knows he's from the household staff, but for the life of him, can't recall his name. Then the name finally surfaces in his mind. Perhaps he is Victor. Victor confirms his name and immediately questions why his young master is still loitering out here, even though Lady Louise personally came to fetch him. According to the servant, the patriarch is boiling with rage right now. Damien, meanwhile, has no freaking clue what he even did to piss his father off this much, but we're about to find out. Back at the Haxon Viscounty, the patriarch's furious and thunderous voice echoes through the mansion. The man is so pissed that he tries to strike Damien on the spot with an improvised swing. Luckily, Damien dodges just in time thanks to his honed skills as a knight. Just then, his mother and sister rush in and arrive in the nick of time, grabbing hold of the patriarch before he actually shreds Damien to pieces. Turns out, our boy got kicked out of bar for causing a massive commotion, once again staining the family name. The whole town is already talking about how the Haxon heir is a good-for-no troublemaker. If it weren't for the mother and daughter duo, the old man probably would have cracked Damien's skull open right there. They're both trying to smack some sense into the furious father. Meanwhile, Damien is having a moment of reflection. He can't even remember the last time he got scolded like this. But now that it's happening, weirdly enough, he feels alive. Let's do some quick introductions. The angry old man is Paul Osborne Haxon. The mother is Marilda Haxon. And the sister, his sweet saving grace, is Louise Haxon. It might be chaotic out here, but Damien missed this so damn much in his past life. Tears start leaking from his eyes, totally uninvited. The family stares in disbelief. Their son crying like this, that's seriously unheard of. Even his father simmers down a bit. Before delivering punishment, he gives his son a chance to explain himself. But Damison's got nothing. No excuses, no deflections. Well, this response comes out as a shocker to his father. As far as his family is concerned, Damien is the guy who used to weasel his way out of everything with lame excuses. But now he owns up to everything. He admits he brought disgrace to the Haxon name. It's all his fault, and he's not ashamed to say it. Daddy lets out a long sigh. This isn't how things usually go. Still, he's not sure if a bit of sincerity his son is showing is enough to let him go off the hook. With all due respect, Damien says he's ready to make up for what he did. He's willing to do whatever it takes to fix the damage and salvage the family's honor. And once he's done that, he's ready to face any punishment his father sees fit. The declaration leaves his family stunned. He sounds like a completely different person. The father even wonders if the boy hit his head or something. Scene cuts to Merchant City landwork. Victor and Damien are sneaking toward the pub. The servant is visibly tense, full of apprehension. He's not sure this is a good idea. There are rumors that the pub is backed by a syndicate. If that's true, things could get ugly. But Damien, who was once a fearless death knight, just walks past his servant, casually giving him permission to head back if he's that scared. Victor, ever the loyal servant, shakes his head. He's duty-bound and isn't about to leave his master, especially not because of fear. Damien reassures him that they're only here to talk to the pub owner and sincerely apologize for the mess he caused last time. He just wants to make things right. As he walks, he hopes everything goes as smoothly as he's picturing in his head. He doesn't know how or why he came back to the past. But if some god really gave him a second shot at life, he's not about to waste it. If he wants to break the curse of always ruining his family's future, he has to start taking bold steps. Once he stands in front of the pub's gate, two thugs immediately take notice. They recognize the face and respond cockily and aggressively. Damien can't remember them clearly as it's been so long, but they do look familiar. Without getting aggressive himself, he keeps his tone calm. He lets them know that he's only here to apologize for the chaos he caused during his last visit. The two thugs freeze for a second, unsure how to react. When his words finally sink in, they burst into laughter. To them, it's hilarious to see Damien, the so-called disgraceful heir, suddenly acting polite and respectful. They've always seen him as the shitty elder son of a shitty household. But now, they're forced to admit he doesn't seem that bad. Damien just stands there silent, listening to them yap. Then they take it too far. They bring up his sister and start saying vile, disgusting things about her. They're willing to accept his apology under the stipulation that he introduces them to his sister. Creepy bastards leave no doubt about how trashy they are. And just like that, it stops being about apologies. Damien swipes a dagger from one of them so fast that the guy doesn't even realize it's gone. Originally, Damien just wanted to say sorry and leave peacefully, but turns out he doesn't have that much patience after all. With a clean, precise swing, he severs one of their hands completely. The guy drops to his knees, screaming in agonizing pain once his brain registers what just happened. The other one immediately draws his sword, though he's visibly flinching. Damien's killing instinct kicks in. The dormant Death Knight inside him begins to surface. And let's not forget Victor in the background, absolutely losing his mind. He's crying out, dreading what's about to go down. The screams of the injured thug soon grab the attention of passers-by. One guy gets curious about the fight, while the other decides to keep walking before they get caught up in this mess. The thug, who still has both hands, tries to intimidate Damien with a few shallow threats. He brags about the gang he belongs to, the Black Snake. No one walks away unscathed after messing with Black Snake. Looks like these aren't just random street thugs after all. Even Damien has some memory of this faction. Black Snake is an organization expanding its influence in land work around this time. And this pub is one of their spots. When Damien complained about their overpriced food back in the day, the only thing he got in the feedback was a brutal beating. Not just beaten, they humiliated him in front of everyone there. Now that he thinks about it, he's the one who actually deserves an apology, not the other way around. Back to the fight. The thug makes it clear that being a noble won't save Damien from the consequences he's about to face. He finally lunges with his sword at full strength. Damien just takes a step back, trips the thug over his feet, and lets the bastard eat dirt. Before he can even finish coughing and get up, Damien's already on him with his dagger. The bastard should be grateful he's only about to lose a leg. If it weren't for his family, wiping these guys off the face of the world wouldn't be hard. With that threat clear, Damien slices off the thug's leg, making him double over in pain. More thugs show up, drawn by the screams. They also seem to be a little shaken, seeing the brutality that unfolded there. Only one of the thugs is courageous enough to stand right at the front while the others hide behind him. He demands to know which organization Damien belongs to and where he's from. Obviously, Damien denies any ties to any gang. As for why he is here just to apologize, though. After thinking it over, he figures he should be the one getting an apology. He also has a complaint for the pub owner. This sassy dude isn't willing to entertain Damien's requests. All they want is his identity. Since he's not telling, they fear they'll have to make him speak. The leader orders his goons to charge. The brainless thugs rush at Damien, unaware of what's coming. Damien doesn't even feel like wasting time on these small fries. He takes a deep breath and zips past them with sonic speed, slicing off hands that were never meant to wield swords against him. One dash later, 3 guys are down. Damien is seriously rocked, while the leader of the thugs is absolutely shocked. Though that quick dash took a little toll on his young and fragile body, still he's got enough strength left to finish off the guy in front of him, and he's ready. The bastard tries to beg for mercy, offering an apology if Damien's willing to forgive, but it's clear this whiny little bitch isn't getting any mercy, at least not until Damien claims one of his limbs. The scene quickly shifts inside the pub, which is brimming with life. But the mood changes fast when everyone notices the whiny guy standing petrified near the entrance. Poor bastard couldn't outrun his doom. As his body falls to one side, Damien stands there, all eyes on him. He wipes blood from his cheek while the customers, who were enjoying their drinks seconds ago, scatter for their lives. Good thing that unnecessary nuisance left right away, leaving Damien alone to settle his score with the pub owner. The owner stands above in the corridor, furious about the noise. More than anything, he's mad there's no guard in sight. This bar owner looks like some goofy character straight out of One Piece. His name's Anderson Hom. Damien only adds salt to the wound by casually revealing he already took down the guards Anderson's talking about. The weight of the situation finally sinks into Anderson's mind. It's unbelievable that someone defeated members of Black Snake. He demands Damien explain why he's causing such a mess and disrupting his business, and more importantly, who he even is. Damien introduces himself without hesitation. He clears the air. He never meant to cause trouble. All he wants is a sincere apology from the owner. The place is way overpriced, and he's already filed a complaint before. The only feedback he got was a humiliating beating and being thrown out like a dog. Everyone misunderstood him and assumed he was the troublemaker. This misunderstanding hit his family's honor hard, causing some serious losses. Anderson, the big mustache bastard, still hasn't realized what kind of situation he's in. Instead of feeling contrition, he mocks Damien and his family. He's heard the Haxon Viscounty has no honor left anyway, which is something this clown finds quite laughable. What's even funnier is that Damien actually expected him to apologize. Seems like my guy had already been expecting this exact response out of this bastard. Initially, he was planning to spare this bastard once he had apologized sincerely. But now he's got the perfect excuse to exact a juicy revenge he's been craving. He won't forgive this bastard talking trash about his family. In a split second, Damien maneuvers so fast he reaches the bastard standing on the first floor. With a dagger aimed straight, he's ready to yank this bastard's life out. But it seems like our boy got carried away and let his guard down. Some guy rushes in, bringing a heavy sword down on Damien, knocking him back to the ground floor. The strength behind the blow is insane. The mysterious guy's name is Ted, someone Anderson's been waiting for to intervene. Damien admits this guy's got serious grit. With the strength he's packing, this gets our guy wondering how someone like Ted ended up working at such a third-rate place. Now he's very curious to learn why a knight of this caliber is even here at all. Let's talk about the knights for a moment. The glorious warriors of honor walk the path of martial arts throughout their lives. There's a hierarchy for them, starting off as a trainee and then an apprentice knight. Finally, they become an official knight when their skill level allows for it. The official knights are recognized as warriors capable of utilizing aura to the point that they're mountain-level warriors, capable of cutting down dozens of creatures ahead of them. They can even cut through castle walls without breaking sweat. In other words, the knights of this story are pretty damn strong. So strong, in fact, that they're considered as transcendent beings. That's actually the reason why the bar owner is out here giggling like a lunatic, because he's damn certain of his victory. Even though Ted is an apprentice knight, he swears allegiance to the leader of the Black Snake organization. With Ted's involvement, the bar owner is confident that our boy won't be able to leave this place in one piece. And yes, the One Piece is real. Damien stands on business, confidently questioning Ted's rank. He can finally understand why he felt a hint of aura in their previous clash. But his revelation just now astonishes Ted, who can't believe that someone as insignificant as our boy was able to sense his aura, even when he did his best to conceal it. Thinking about it for a minute, Damien pieces together the reason why Ted even bothers working in a shitty place like this. He thinks that Ted wasn't considered good enough to become an official knight and was tossed out from the ranks, leaving him no place to go. The verbal assault has already chipped the knight's armor, while the bar owner tries to calm him down by addressing payment. Hearing the word apprentice attached to his rank, Ted's blood starts boiling. Pissed as hell, he bursts with incredible speed to slice down the arrogant noble's mouth, in an effort to punish him for being disrespectful. But without fearing for a thing, our boy simply stands there as Ted's blade is about to slice him down. He evades the heavy strike at the very last second, which means if he hadn't dodged the attack, the enraged apprentice knight would have sliced him in half. Preparing himself for a second attack, the apprentice knight unleashes his swings at Damien. While our boy is dodging without much difficulty, he's starting to grasp his opponent's skill. From the looks of it, Ted doesn't appear to be an average apprentice knight, demonstrated by his sword ability and precise swings. Bursting with fury, the apprentice knight unleashes a wide slash, which is easily evaded by the young master. Despite possessing some of his combat ability from the future, Damien is having to struggle with his body's physical limitations. He can't make the best out of his current state, and it's a learning moment for him to prioritize managing his stamina. The apprentice knight is getting frustrated that none of his attacks are connecting. So this time he goes bats hit crazy and imbues his body with a glimmer of aura. Realizing what's coming his way, Damien predicts his opponent's secret technique. The apprentice knight launches a linear sword strike coated with immense power. As the blade is about to pierce his body, Damien calms down even in the face of imminent death. He wants to respond with a technique of his own, one that can counteract it successfully. Recalling his traumatizing days as the Death Knight, he remembers facing the legendary killer, the one known as the Blade of Death. This assassin was revered as a force of nature. So, the Death Knight came to face him. The phantom assassin immediately pointed his blade at the monstrous-looking knight, stating his intentions of killing him if he didn't run off. Realizing that the Death Knight wasn't going to comply, a sinister side evoked inside of the phantom assassin. The bloodthirsty beast was thrilled to find yet another target to kill. In fact, he wanted to use his secret technique to give a performance unlike any other. Thanks to his perceptive eyes, he was able to analyze the vital points of a human body, utilizing the water inside of it. And then he unleashed the ultimate secret technique, which he probably learned from Sukuna, slicing down on the Death Knight's body. The best part? He did all of that using a basic wooden sword, which shows the greatness of his technique even more. The Death Knight's torn body rested on the ground, while the phantom assassin celebrated his victory. Little did he know that the Death Knight wasn't going to die that easy. In fact, when he turned around, he saw doom. The creature's body was linking back together, his flesh and organs forming back into one central piece, even after being cut in half. Yep, that's because the Death Knight whipped out the anti-kit technique from the Han era. With his body fully reformed, the phantom assassin began to realize that he fucked up by targeting an undead monster. Here's the icing on the cake. After experiencing the same technique used on his body, Damien instantly learned it and was able to use his perceptive eyes to target the phantom assassin's vital points. Without even being able to comprehend what was going on, the Death Knight slaughtered the assassin by giving him the same treatment. Instant karma. And the surprising part is the Death Knight did it with bare hands. The maniacal assassin experienced excruciating pain, all the while being unable to comprehend how someone was able to copy his secret technique. And that leads us back to the present. A similar expression is worn by Ted, one of despair and defeat. He's down on the ground. His body hasn't been severed in half in a gruesome manner, but it did experience a deep slash. Our glorious protagonist explains that every single one of his enemies didn't even know what hit them until they were groveling on the ground. All of his fights went like this. Why? It's because his one inherent ability as the Death Knight is to absorb his enemy's skills and use them as his own. Long story short, Bro is out here giving Kakashi the copy ninja a run for his money. Seeing Ted go down the way he did causes the bar owner to become scared as bitch. He's out here sweating bullets, thinking that he's next. Bro's got that desperate Vegeta face going on. Seconds later, he's kneeling in front of our boy and apologizing for bringing dishonor to the hacks in Viscounty. But it doesn't end there. He also offers a serious amount of gold as a consolation for any trouble caused. Damien is out here celebrating on the inside. He only came here for a simple apology, but he's getting easy money too. He decides to let the matter slide and glances at his servant, Victor, who quietly observed the whole scene unfold. The servant quickly comes to collect the amount, questioning his own senses after what happened. He saw how the young master dismantled the knight with a crazy technique at the last second. It doesn't make sense to him how the young master suddenly obtained powerful techniques. In the next scene, they're leaving the bar. Victor comments on how he's never had to carry so much money before. But something tells me the bar owner isn't finished because this scumbag intends to take his revenge in the future. His intention is to speak to the leader of the Black Snake organization. But as he's plotting his next revenge scheme, our boy comes back to humble him by slicing off his right ear. The bar owner screams in agony, while Damien reminds him that he couldn't leave without rendering an appropriate punishment. Oh, and he already anticipates the bar owner's next move, and he's more than happy to leave a message for the leader of the organization. Damien's only warning is that if the organization dares to mess with his family, he'll wipe them all out. Despite having his ear cut off firsthand, he still wants to take his revenge and intends to report to the organization. But that's for later. As our boy keeps on walking ahead, as he's heading out, he fully comes to terms with his own wrongdoings in his previous life. His past leaves a trail of blood, one of murder and only sinful acts. He doesn't intend to run from this past, but this time he vows not to disappoint his family and always stay by their side. Damien declares that it's time for them to head home. The scene cuts to the Lion Bloom March, where a man addresses his brother regarding the phrase, "Pain always follows love." His brother doesn't know what this dude is going on about and realizes that this guy's planning to head to another battle. Rejecting his brother's assumption, the dude clarifies that he's actually going on a quest to find love. I would believe his words if not for that ugly expression on his face. Coming back to the Haxon estate, our boy is glad to have gotten a good night's sleep after his adventurous run last night. The same can't be said for poor Victor, however, who was busy processing what happened before his eyes. The horror of it all kept him awake, thinking about what would happen next. Damien emphasizes that everything worked out well in their favor, so there's nothing to worry about. Even though they deviated from the original plan, they achieved their purpose all the same. Next up, our boy is waiting for the rumors to spread around, allowing people to realize not to mess with the Viscount Haxon's eldest son. With this rumor flying around, no one will ever dare to mess with his family again. He's also happy that his reputation as the useless son will also experience a slight shift, and people will see him in a more respectful light. Even as his servant Victor can't fathom how the young master is suddenly so competent and self-aware. The servant is deathly afraid of what will happen regarding the situation with the Black Snake group, because what they did last night was provocative in every sense. Damien dogwalked their men and even annihilated an apprentice knight. Even with their threat looming around, Damien is confident that they would double-check before messing with a noble family. And if they're stupid enough to try, he'll beat them black and blue. This alleviates some of Victor's concerns, and he comments on our boy's exceptional sword skills. Skills that he shouldn't even have, which makes him question when the young master became so capable in sword fighting. Of course, our boy quickly turns away because he really doesn't have an explanation for it. Damien tells him that he trains every now and then. Speaking of Damien, his father is out here channeling the speeds of Barry Allen, the Flash. Daddy is pissed that his son was gone all day yesterday. What's more, he's scared that the kid must have caused even more trouble again. Showing no signs of fear, Damien urges his father to calm down because he handled everything and rectified his previous mistake. He then tells Victor to reveal their prized possession. The glimmering gold coins seduce his parents very quickly. It's the easiest way to make them happy. The young master informs them of his travels to the same tavern and how he cleared up a certain misunderstanding, a miscalculation that they did. And because of that, they gave him consolation money for their mistake. I just love how he omitted the part where he cut off like 20 hands and plucked off the bar owner's ear. His parents are doubtful at first, but they're quickly persuaded because of the gold. The funny thing is that Damien even uses Victor to testify on his part, shoving him under the bus as well. In the end, Victor agrees with everything the young master said, which adds more weight to his words and helps his family's trust in him. Damien's parents are happy, while Victor is out here realizing that he's got a Gaslighter Pro Max as his young master. The scene quickly cuts to our boy sprinting in the fields in order to test his stamina. After a little while, he's already exhausted and dying for breath. This makes Damien understand his own limitations, and he has to deal with his shitty body at once, or he'll be at a huge disadvantage. Pulling out a purple gem from his pocket, he's lucky to have acquired a little something that's going to help him in the short run. Before leaving the tavern, the bar owner included this tonic in his list of treasures, a creation of Alchemy Academy. It allows a significant increase in one's stamina and energy. Damien found himself surprised to hear the Academy's name. They specialize in making these types of potions and tonics, and they're so good that their value is equal to a gemstone. All the good for this young master who got his hands on it for free. At present, he quickly gulps down the tonic and, in mere seconds, experiences a jolt of electrifying energy brewing inside of him. The effects are working right away. He crushes the vial, reflecting that his most important goal right now is to build up his body back to the way it was. To become the unstoppable Death Knight, the Pookie Archlich Dorgo is bound to unleash his army of the undead, ravaging the world to ashes. Damien has to make sure to prevent that dark future from happening no matter what. That's why he's hellbent on regaining his powers. It's the only way he'll be able to protect what's dear to him, his family's safety and happiness. Pumped for another run, he bolts off, declaring that he'll kill the Archlich. And this time, he'll make sure Dorgo stays down. That very night, the scene cuts to the tower of the Black Snake group. The grunting fatso is disappointed in the apprentice knight's defeat, especially since they spent a fortune hiring him. Ted's condition is really bad. So much so that even the underlings think they should get him treated. But off-brand Kim Jong-un over here is ruthless and orders Ted to be thrown into the dumpster. Meet the boss of the Black Snake group, Cedric Walker, who apparently doesn't believe in second chances and wants Ted to be disposed of right away. After all, they can just buy another one in his place. Mustering all of his strength, the apprentice knight takes a stand and comments on how disappointing this ending is. Cedric turns around, surprised to see the knight still capable of holding his ground. He actually offers Ted a second chance if he gets treated. But based on how he was about to dispose of him only a minute ago, the apprentice knight is so pissed off that he lunges at him with his blade. But despite his desperate attempt to kill the organization's leader, he is stopped by a shadow tendril, which quickly chains him and renders him harmless. The person responsible appears and prefers killing the apprentice knight as part of their contract. Cedric is more than happy to see how their newest hire will perform. The helpless knight can only shout complaints. The mage ends up chanting a command, unleashing demonic creatures from the dark upon the helpless knight. Before the knight can even comprehend what's going on, he meets his bone-chilling demise. Despite him begging for mercy, the 5 demonic beasts devour each of his limbs as well as his head, ripping his body apart as his screams reach the ceiling. By the end, the only thing that's left of Ted is a miserable foot. Bro probably got the worst death I've seen in a while. Cedric is disgusted, but at the same time quite impressed. He accepts the mage into his group and requests for cleaner death from now on. The mage is happy to hear that and awaits his next target. The leader of the organization expresses the recent incident, which included a noble who messed with their members. However, Cedric isn't going to be stopping. All he cares about is for Damien to suffer an agonizing and gruesome death, and he's even willing to increase the pay for it. Cedric pays the mage his commission in advance. The dark mage is more than happy to take up this task and execute it with success. Panting in exhaustion, our boy continues his epic training arc. He's out here doing squats with a heavy load on each side, helping him become overall muscular and amp up his stamina. This training regimen is doing wonders for him. But strangely enough, the past few days have been far too quiet, almost as if disaster is right around the corner. He was fully expecting the Black Snake organization to come and shoot him down by now. As he's about to drink from his bottle, he senses the presence of 2 assassins nearby. Realizing that they're the scumbags of the organization, our boy zaps in with incredible speed to pin them down. To his utter shock, the dude he ends up attacking isn't an enemy, but actually Abel, his nerdy brother. Bro immediately releases him, causing his younger brother to flop to the ground. Abel is awestruck by his older brother's incredible strength, and he was fully expecting to get his head popped just now. It's a good thing that didn't happen. Damien apologizes and offers him a hand, sharing that it was never his intent to treat him like this. Instead of accepting his older brother's apology, the nerdy brother reveals that he learned about Damien's situation at the bar and how he got an apology out of the owner. However, from what he's heard, he knows that a fight broke out and that dozens of people were injured. Abel accuses his older brother of lying to his own family. Instead of deceiving him, Damien actually confirms the facts as the cold, hard truth. Abel jumps in his face in shock, questioning how the hell his brother was able to face off so many people. It doesn't make sense unless he hired Agent 47 or something. Even though Damien fully accepts that he's the one who did everything, Abel still isn't convinced. The only thing he cares about is that his older brother doesn't go around dishonoring their family's reputation. They're already sick and tired of cleaning the troubles he's caused in the past. Fully understanding his little brother's annoyance, Damien pats him on the head, reflecting that his little brother has a pure heart and has always wanted the best for his family. That's why he doesn't find himself annoyed at his attitude. In fact, he smiles at Abel, stating that there's nothing for them to worry about anymore. Their meeting is interrupted by Victor, who comes in panting to deliver some shockingly bad news. His sudden announcement causes both of the young masters to grow alert. In the next scene, they quickly dash into the family estate and burst open the door, only to find his parents sitting opposite to a certain man. This is the same dude from earlier who wanted to go on his quest for love, or whatever the fuck he means. Seeing Damien arrive so quickly, the arrogant man expresses his innocent intentions of sharing what happened at the banquet hall. Meet Erwin Lionbloom, the evil and beta version of Erwin from Attack on Titan. Unfortunately, he shares some terrible ties with our protagonist. To understand what happened between them, we'll have to go back to the past. At the banquet hall, he and Erwin had a little beef. Apparently, Damien was offended by something, while the calm and collected Erwin only riled him further. The drunk troublemaker reminded everyone that Erwin insulted his sister and spoke badly about him, so he has every right to take offense. Then again, Erwin smartly took advantage of our boy's drunk state and pinned the blame on that. To make matters even worse, this bastard went right up in his face to call him a retard and reminded him that even if he did say all of that, Damien couldn't do shit about it anyway. It came as a shock to our boy's system. At the time, he made the biggest mistake he could possibly make in that situation. He chose physical violence and punched the bastard away. To be honest, that punch felt really satisfying, even if it was the wrong thing to do in the hall. Even after eating a clear hit to the face, the noble released a victorious smile, implying that he always wanted the situation to turn out this way. And that brings us to the present. Damien fully understands that Erwin deliberately chose to get hit because he's actually pretty damn skilled, close enough to become a knight, so it would have been easy to dodge. As it turns out, the slimeball was waiting for this moment. In this family meeting, this man boldly tells our boy's parents that he shares admiration for Louise, their daughter. At first, the Viscount doesn't get what Erwin is trying to say. That's until Captain Douchebag over here boldly declares a marriage proposal between him and Damien's sister. The announcement rocks the Haxon family to their very senses. Damien internalizes his frustration, knowing that this is the exact sequence that took place in his previous life. The bastard took advantage of his family's poor circumstances. Erwin doubles down by saying that he'll forget what happened at the banquet hall, but only if they become a part of his family, therefore preventing any bad blood between the two houses. However, his father firmly denies such a proposal like the jigachad he is. Erwin's frustration grows after discovering that Louise already has a fiancé set for marriage. But then comes the issue of his humiliation at the banquet hall. Erwin reminds the Haxon family that they won't be able to deal with the consequences that come with denying his proposal. It will end in a wrathful outcome. The scumbag offers them a final dilemma. It's either they choose him for their daughter, or they suffer the consequences. This is truly a difficult decision for the Viscount to consider, knowing that the Lion Bloom family is tremendously powerful among the nobles. Even then, he knows just how shitty of a person Erwin truly is. His father's instincts just can't allow something so disgraceful to happen to his daughter. Suddenly, Louise herself makes her presence known, offering herself as the sacrifice and accepting the terms of marriage. Seeing their own daughter sacrifice herself like this causes the Viscount to break down. He tries to assure her that they'll find a way out of this. Even though Abel is pissed off and admits that his sister doesn't have to deal with the trouble Damien caused. Seeing her take a stand for the sake of her family even causes Damien to feel sad. But the brave girl maintains her smile, promising to go with Erwin. The whole situation is a great reminder for our protagonist, a reflection of his past mistakes summarized in one scene. Because of the problems he caused, his sister had to bite the bullet. Now that the situation has wrapped up in his favor, an evil smile crosses over Erwin's face. He's glad that they made the correct choice. As he prepares to leave, he tells Louise that a formal request will be officially sent so they can discuss details. But as he's talking all that shit, the devil himself appears before his eyes, glaring down at him. I think anyone who has a sister would have the same expression as our boy after what happened. Mocking Damien openly, Erwin calls him his brother-in-law. Damien doesn't give a damn about him, but the fact that he ruined his sister's life in the original timeline is enough motivation for him to prevent the same from happening again. Louise can't believe that her brother has taken a stand for her. He mumbles something incomprehensible, something that the arrogant blonde noble doesn't even comprehend. What he does comprehend is a Mike Tyson uppercut that launches him to the damn sky. While it's true that Damien shouldn't have fallen for Erwin's provocation again, he just can't sit around waiting for this bastard to tear his family apart. The noble's body hits the ground while our boy declares his stance strongly. He won't let Erwin do what he wants. To understand why he feels such disdain for this man, we'll have to take a peek into the original timeline of what happened the first time. After being sold off to the Lion Bloom family, Damien couldn't see his sister for a long time. So, one day, when he realized that they were coming to visit, he couldn't contain his excitement and ran with a smile on his face, excited to meet his sister. Things took a truly terrifying turn because the moment he arrived, his body shuddered in despair. Before him was his beautiful sister. Her hair was pulled like she was some kind of animal. Erwin dragged her for always complaining about her shitty family. He was pissed that she even dared to threaten leaving him. Oh, but he didn't stop there. To truly educate her and make sure she never defied him again, Erwin prepared himself properly as the innocent girl shuddered in fear. Locking in a fist, he abused her brutally as the poor girl wailed in pain. Just watching that sight broke our boy from the inside. He couldn't even protect his sister, and he's the one who got her into such a state in the first place. All because of his actions at the banquet hall. From then on, a deep hatred took root inside of Damien's heart. A hatred designed specifically for the bastard known as Erwin Lionbloom. That brings us back to the present where he's just finished uppercutting this man into a knockout. The entire family is shaken. The Lionbloom guards concerningly show up after hearing the sound of their young master moaning in pain. At once, they unsheath their weapons to seize the person responsible for hurting the young master. Damien gave them one look and realized that they're his escort guards. Speaking of the bastard, Erwin snickers like the little pest he is and gets back up. He's done being slapped twice in the face by now. Taking the situation to violent means, he clenches his sword while the Haxon family stares in horror. Finally revealing his true nature, Erwin unsheaths his blade, questioning if his brother-in-law is looking for a quick death. To prevent the situation from turning into a bloodbath, his escort guards quickly step in to handle the situation for him, since it could lead to a bad impression of him. But this time, the enraged bastard doesn't listen to reason and demands that his guards move. When one of the escort guards resists the order, Erwin literally punches him into the nearest wall. I genuinely took him for a weakling, but damn, he really is close to the skill of a knight, chillingly reminding his guards to move. Erwin glares at them with contempt. Abel and Louise are quivering for their brother's sake. While the Lionbloom young master strides forward to deal with Damien for good, he wonders how the Haxon family will resolve this situation, especially when they've made it worse tenfold. Sensing real danger for her brother's life, Louise understands that Damien will be hurt. She forcibly steps in to resolve everything. But this time, our boy defends her. No longer will she become the sacrifice. This time, Damien, her older brother, will handle the situation as he gives her a look of assurance that everything is all right. It's time for an official one-on-one duel. Hearing the word duel astonishes the Lionbloom young master. Damien makes his offer clear, stating that he'll do anything asked of him if he is defeated in the duel. But if our boy wins, everything that happened up to this point will be forgotten from both sides. Interestingly, Erwin doesn't want to accept the conditions for the duel because he already got what he wanted out of Louise. She already signed an approval from her side. Instead of backing down, Damien takes a smart approach by challenging Erwin's ego, stating that he's a coward for backing out of a duel. Basically, bro said no balls to a good argument. The funniest thing is that it actually works. Erwin considers accepting the duel simply because he thinks he'll mop the floor with Damien in a real battle, finding this as the perfect opportunity to crush Damien forever and then steal his sister from him. The sadistic fuck-faced bastard points his blade and accepts the duel. In the next scene, Damien's mother is really worried and wants to intervene. But seeing their son confidently step in like that, the Viscount thinks that Damien must have a plan behind his back. That's why they have to let their hopes rest in his hands. Unfortunately for them, Abel knows just how despairing this situation truly is. He is the only person here who fully understands Erwin's skills, comparing him to an official knight. So, from that perspective, this is a losing battle right from the beginning. The arrogant young master wants to kick the battle into motion, but he's stunned that his opponent isn't even interested in using a sword. Damien assures him that he'll be all right. In order to fully humiliate the guy, Bro brings out his trusty fork. Ah, yes, the ultimate fork sword. The only weapon that can compare to the ultimate stick of destruction. Seeing the damn fork in his hand, Erwin is at a loss for words while Damien's family is out here dying on the inside, questioning what the actual flip he's going to do with that. Erwin straight up laughs in his face, finding it reasonable to assume that his opponent has already accepted defeat. He thinks Damien's gone crazy out of terror. With full confidence, Erwin lunges into the fight, intending to cut him down. But to his utter shock, the first swing misses Damien, who evaded casually. To complicate his attack pattern, Erwin launched multiple swings, unleashing his technique, the fierce roaring lion sword. Bro's got his own Susanoo over here. Anyway, the destructive blow is all smoke and mirrors because, by the end of the attack, our boy's feet are still firmly planted on the ground. He's deflected every single strike. Even the escort guards are at a loss for words, not knowing if the young master is playing around or if his opponent is really that good. To deconstruct what happened, we take a look at Erwin's point of view. In that brief time window from when the technique launched, our boy danced around each of his swings without even getting hit once. As for Damien, he's glad that his physical training has been paying off. Thanks to his increased stamina, He can now keep up with fast movements without gassing himself out. Need I remind you guys that he's doing all of this with just a damn fork? But also, he has gained an understanding of the Lion Bloom family's swordsmanship thus far. Here's the neat part. In the original timeline, the Death Knight Damien actually faced off against the eldest son of the Lion Bloom family, Michael Lionbloom. And this guy was a force to be reckoned with. Compared to that, his little brother is disappointing and much weaker. That's why the current Damien isn't having any trouble facing him. Erwin's blood boils as he sends off waves of aura, refusing to accept that it was skill that allowed Damien to dodge his techniques. Unfortunately, the invoking of aura is dangerous for anyone to deal with. So, our boy is faced with yet another puzzle. How will he avoid this? Erwin Lionbloom races at incredible speeds to jump right in front of the target, ready to deal a killing blow. In this delicate moment, Damien considers and selects the Sword Saint technique from his list of techniques and decides to use it. A proper clash breaks out, except Erwin's world breaks into pieces when he sees a mere fork blocking his sword, and even overpowering it to some extent. He can't even fathom what's going on. Before he can even process the situation, he is struck with our boy's secret move, the countless Thunder Shadow revelations. Using that move, the ultimate fork of destruction flings the sword away with ease. It's Erwin's ultimate fall as Damien hastens to end the fight with a fork in hand. The fork stabs the arrogant noble in the neck, ending the battle. Every single person in his family gasps in horror. You guys might be thinking that a fork was used as a murder weapon just now. But it turns out that our boy is quite generous. He only poked Erwin's neck, as if to warn him that he could have done more. Even after receiving a tiny stab, this dude starts freaking out like a little shit. Of course, in his heart, Damien really would have wanted to kill him and erase the disease from the world. But he knows that he must choose his family side this time and let this situation slide. So, he concludes the duel, declaring himself as the clear winner and asking if little Erwin over here has any issues with that conclusion. Shuddering like a puppy, the arrogant noble has been reduced to a harmless doll. Damien straight up tells this dude to get lost as the scene comes to an end. If you guys think the way Damien handled that humiliation was satisfying, then like the video and show your support. After the duel, the family shares a quiet breakfast the next day. Having finished his meal, our boy gets up to leave for his training. With him gone, the family sulks in sadness. Particularly, the boy's mother is curious and wonders when they'll talk to Damien about what happened. Speaking of which, Abel is out here having his system reset. Dude is in a permanent state of shock, unable to comprehend how his brother suddenly became so goddamn powerful. Even his parents are concerned. The Viscount breaks silence, emphasizing that it wouldn't be right to force their son for an answer. He thinks the right decision here is to let the boy reveal the truth when he feels the time is right. I really like that they're not forcing him here. Such a nice touch. Apart from that, his father is visibly shaken. Though he's curious about his son, the look of death he sees in Damien's eyes intimidates him to the point he doesn't want to confront him about anything. Even though Damien is his flesh and blood, that boy has become a lot more intimidating than before. Shifting the perspective to our boy's side, he's out here, taking inspiration from Rock Lee, arming his body with heavy weight to train for endurance. As he's about to head out, Louise catches up to her brother. She's the first person from his family who wants to talk about what happened the other day. While she's struggling to form her words, our boy realizes his mistake and immediately lowers his head, apologizing for the trouble he caused and how he forced her to be in a vulnerable position. While he's ranting on and on about his apology, his sister stops him, offering her sincerest gratitude. He really did stand up for her, and she feared for her life, even though she didn't show her fear in front of Erwin. It's thanks to her brother that she avoided such a miserable fate. Hearing her admit that makes Damien very happy to have made a difference. Knowing that her brother stepped up for her cause to save her bravely is the reason she's so grateful for him. In a warm moment, while receiving her gratitude, Damien offers his own. A sister shows her love for her brother, and a brother returns it back with interest. He's thankful for everything she's done for him this far. Before Louise can comprehend what he means by that, he prepares to leave. As he's leaving, she offers him a sword to take with him. It's actually their father's most prized possession, his favorite item. To show love for his son, the Viscount counted him the blade so that Damien could use it in his training. The boy is shocked to hear such consideration from his father, while Louise reveals that even though their father can be tough on the outside, he loves Damien a lot. Funnily enough, she does her father's impression to remind dear old Damien never to use a fork again because it's disgraceful for the family. Damien's pretty damn convinced by her impression and unsheathes the blade, finding himself impressed by what he sees. He's in his father's debt. Hilariously, when we go back to his father's sword collection, we get to see that this man has a whole bunch of swords at his disposal. He's just complaining for no reason at all. In the next scene, terror looms in the shadows. The evil mage and his dark magic has made its way to a certain estate. The night guards are out here yawning in exhaustion, and right when they're caught off guard, the shadows take over them, dismantling both of them in a mere instant. With the two of them down, this mysterious mage makes his way through the gate. In the few moments that followed, the mage slowly made his way inside the house. Abel and his parents are asleep. The mage quietly steps up to Louise's room, who is also dozing off, not knowing an evil man is hovering over her. This disgusting piece of filth is enjoying himself staring at her. Even though he came here on behalf of the Black Snake, he thinks he's found himself something fun to play with. The filthy mage finds himself startled when he discovers a voice from behind. It's our boy, who is affirming at the door to look even more badass than he is. He gives the bastard a disgusting look and questions his actions. The call-out is real, as Damien goes on to express that he was able to sense strange energy lurking around their house, so he decided to check it out. The perspective of the dark mage is interesting. Even though he used a special type of magic to put everyone to sleep, it appears that Damien was unaffected by it. Not just that, the dark mage couldn't even detect his presence from behind until he spoke. These factors alone are enough to convince him that this guy is troublesome. So, he quickly turns back and unleashes Vegeta's Gatling gun over here. Dodging the magic blast, our boy moves to a different position, all the while frustrating the dark mage as he fails to understand what's happening. Damien prepares his sword, throwing the same question back at him as he reminds the scumbag that he's the one who invaded their house. Suddenly, the mage realizes that he's actually speaking to his target, Damien of the Haxon house. Confirming his identity, our boy pulls his blade, locking a lethal glare at the mage and demanding to know why the hell he stepped foot in his sister's room. The powerful magic attack shook the house and woke the rest of the family. The mage realizes that he's going to be in deep trouble if the servants have already awoken, since he's supposed to execute his task cleanly as per his orders. The dark mage decides to retreat for now. As he's fading away into a shadow mist, Damien tries to stop him. Unfortunately, there's little you can do while fighting the damn air, so his enemy escapes through the window and out the house, disappearing into the distance. With the threat neutralized, Damien suddenly spots a shred of the mage's dark energy. It appears that he left some of it behind. In the next scene, we turn to the perspective of the servants. They've just discovered the horrific sight of the Viscount's most treasured horse. If word gets out, the Viscount will raise hell. It's also strange, because the horse was doing just fine the other day. As the servants are mumbling in horror, Damien comes up to shock them with his sudden entry, expressing his own concerns. The young master's sudden arrival scares them, but he assures them that there's no need for any of them to panic, as he isn't here to hold either one of them responsible. All he cares about is for him to take a personal look, so he orders them to leave the site. Now that he's alone, Damien inspects the condition of the horse. Turns out that the same shadow trail of energy is somehow connected to this dead horse. From the looks of it, he's confirmed the presence of dark mana based on the terrifying energy signature. This also confirms his suspicions that the man he faced last night is actually a dark mage who practices such mana. Now, Damien understands that his family still doesn't know what happened. In fact, he has no intention of revealing anything, as it will only create chaos and worry. Instead, he glares back to the trail of dark energy looming in the atmosphere and creating a path into the forest. A while later, we get to see the hideout of the dark mage. Apparently, he's holding his valuables here while snickering like a Walmart villain. It's actually because Cedric recently sent him all of the things he asked for. He lied to the Black Snake's leader, stating that it's a curse. But from how much inventory he received, the dark mage is glad that his experimentations will continue down the line. At the same time, he feels disappointed in his own talent. He's having to struggle with bottom-tier requests just to earn a bit of money. Then again, it's the only choice he has, especially when the Holy Church is already on the lookout for him. It's imperative for the guy to keep a low profile, or so he thought, because following the same trail of dark energy, our boy happily shows up. Think of it like returning a favor for invading his home. He calls out the disgusting stench, I bet it's comparable to that one stranger on the bus ripping one out and killing everyone with their mustard gas. The Dark Mage can't believe his eyes. The eldest son of the Viscount, the man he fought yesterday, has just showed up to his doorstep. It bothers him that Damien managed to discover his little hideout. I mean, it wasn't hard, I bet, considering the fact that his mana smells the same as the average gamer's room. The Dark Mage shares how he had heard about the rumors of the noble standing up to the members of the Black Snake. But now that he's seen the kid in person, he can tell that Damien is more powerful than people believe him to be. The young master is glad that he was sharp, knowing that the Dark Mage shares a connection with the evil organization. The Dark Mage confirms this, revealing that a part of their deal is to make sure Damien suffers an agonizing death. Hearing this makes him laugh as he declares what's about to happen, pointing out that the mage will die for taking on such a request. Hearing such a ridiculous remark from him, the mage laughs, unveiling his sinister nature and finding joy in his victim's delusion. He's in the mood to make the perfect experimental pet out of Damien after capturing him. The swordsman prepares his sword, assuring the mage that it won't be the case, because in this life, he promised himself that he won't kill anyone unless absolutely necessary. However, the only exception to his rule are people as heinous as the Dark Mage, who are the definition of filth and disgust. Damien's more than happy to wipe them off the face of the planet. The Dark Mage is astonished yet again by the boy's knowledge, but he thinks it's all meaningless and blasts him with multiple magic circle attacks. He's not going to let the Viscount's son escape at any cost. But lucky for him, our boy doesn't share that intention either. Looking cool as fuck, he sweeps right in with an incredible lunge and connects a clean upward slash, cutting his opponent in half. Diseases are hard to kill, and just like a bad disease, this guy is also hard to kill. Despite being split in half, he simply disintegrates into the shadows, reassembling his state. Damien internalizes that his opponent is using the same ability he used back at the estate, and that this guy is actually pretty damn strong, even if he took up a lower-tier request to kill someone. Maniacal laughter releases from his mouth as the Dark Mage assumes his victory, maintaining that he won't be cut by ordinary means. So, in order to deal with a pest like him, Damien decides to go ballistic and renders numerous cuts to make sure nothing remains. Even though it's a good effort on his part, it still doesn't change the fact that his opponent's body can reassemble with ease. The Dark Mage thinks he's dealing with someone powerful, but he makes it known that the moment Damien walked inside his hideout, he sealed his own fate. Speaking of sealing his fate, the scumbag uses the same attack he used against Ted, restraining Damien in place and letting his little demons of death devour the rest. The thing is, the Dark Mage knew that the church was on his tail, so he doubled down on his preparations with advanced spells. From the looks of it, the situation is getting really tense. Even our boy is tensed up considering his circumstances. The mage grimaces in victory, laughing at the demise of his opponent, who will regret challenging a Yulon commander. With Damien restrained, he's moments away from being ultimately devoured by the creatures of the dark and meeting the same fate as the apprentice knight. The tendrils of dark mummify their victim. It's like watching a spider webbing up its prey and tangling it into place. The Dark Mage returns to his tangible form and calls Damien arrogant for being reckless with his approach. He also remembers Cedric's order to make his targets suffer as much as possible, which is made successful by the fact that he'll torture him for a long time. This bastard is also out here celebrating that now he can feast on the beauty he saw at his house without any interruptions. That's until Damien drops a little surprising note for him. He breaks apart the decomposing curse spell that he just used. At a loss for words, the Dark Mage returns a look of despair, questioning how his prey is unaffected. It's impossible to dispel the curse unless someone knows about dark magic, which is exactly what our boy did. Here's the thing, though. Even Damien is taken aback by what he did. I guess his regression powers kicked in, because it appears he awakened an authority insignia on his body, even though he shouldn't have it at this point in the past. Let's talk about what an authority actually is. In this world, it's known as the power of a god being gifted to mortals. In this case, Dorgo favored his Death Knight so much that he infused the strongest magic and binded it into him. Even after giving him indestructible magic and power, Dorgo was left unsatisfied. He wanted more out of his Death Knight, the ultimate servant and the sword of evil. Hence, he decided to slit his own hand, unleashing a part of his dark power, turning the Death Knight into an ultimate weapon. A column of dark mana pulsed upon the Death Knight. Dorgo forced his authority upon him, and with a final hand sign, He imbued all of it into Damien's body, carving an insignia on his hand. That evil power ripped his body apart, giving him a world of pain unlike any other. By the end of the process, the Death Knight had transcended into a realm of becoming unstoppable. This Gigachad received the authority of God and became a force to be reckoned with. Side note, all of a sudden, I'm starting to realize why Dorgo got his ass nuked. Bro literally turned his Death Knight into a mini nuclear weapon and thought things were going to be fine. Back to the present, Damien remembers the mark of the authority of greed. It's his power as the Death Knight resurfacing again. Before he's able to process it fully, another magic blast comes his way, which he quickly evades. The Dark Mage raises an immediate question for him. Just how the hell was he able to survive his decomposition spell? Being a good sport, Damien funnily says that he had a trump card, and that's why. The most convincing explanation is actually the power of plot armor, and the author makes sure to slide that part in. Back to the battle, Damien has now gained an understanding of his opponent and his connection to Yulon. This Yulon is actually another organization, an even more sinister one that practices assassination using dark magic. Compared to them, the Black Snake is nothing. It's not a surprise that this guy is actually pretty damn skilled. The Dark Mage assesses the situation too, internalizing that he can't let this battle drag on for any longer, especially when his opponent is unpredictable. Even though he wanted to save his ultimate weapon for the church, he thinks it's an appropriate time to whip out the good stuff. With his bracelet glowing a bright green, the mage unleashes a wave of mana, exuding from his body as he slowly loses control of himself. Even Damien notices that this guy is using a dangerous amount of dark mana. From his understanding, the bracelet appears to be some kind of artifact to store mana. Well, things go from 0 to 100 really quick when this guy uses his full power. He summons an illusory beast that I don't even know how to describe. Let's call him the Ugly Five Eyes. Having lost control, the Dark Mage roars the demise for his opponent and declares Damien will burn in hellfire. The creature of destruction fully swarms in and connects against our boy's body. With a direct hit like that, the Dark Mage once again assumes his victory. How could anyone on Earth possibly survive such a hellfire? After all, hellfire is something that can't be expunged, even after one's death. Using the power of plot armor once again, Damien breezes through the green flames, pointing out the mage's miscalculation. The thing about the authority of greed is that it simply doesn't dispel magic. Damien stands unharmed as the same hellfire flames get absorbed into his body. He stands uncontested, having become more powerful than ever before, revealing that the function of his authority is to absorb all dark magic. The mage is at a loss for words, questioning how a Viscount's son could have the terrifying power of authority. It's time for this fight to end as the young master readies his blade, commanding that he has nothing to explain to a dead man. But on the inside, Damien is genuinely pissed off that he has to rely on his dark powers to win a battle. At the same time, he doesn't have much choice but to invoke the techniques of the Death Knight in order to win this fight. The Dark Mage is at a loss for words when he sees the Aura Blade. The sword is coated in a black aura, and it's not just any sword technique, either. It's something only achievable by a warrior of the Swordmaster rank. Before he yaps again about his confusion about Damien's abilities, our boy renders his ultimate technique, the soul-severing slash, slicing his opponent's body clean and leaving a massive gash in the cave. The place crumbles after being devastated by his blade, while Damien glares at his victim. Without pause, Damien walks toward the fallen mage and pins him down with his sword, demanding the location of the Dark Snake hideout. The next morning, Damien set out toward the city of Landwork with Victor at his side. The fatty couldn't help but ask why they were going there, but Damien quickly shut him up, annoyed by the constant questions. Shifting his curiosity elsewhere, Victor's attention landed on the dark book Damien was reading. Damien casually claimed it was a grimoire of dark magic he had recently gotten his hands on, though deep down he knew it came from the dark mage he had defeated. Victor, however, wasn't convinced. Grimoires of that kind were extremely rare and not easy to obtain. Before he could press further, his nose caught a strange foul odor coming from the sack Damien carried. Soon enough, they reached the market, where Damien handed the sack over to him, calmly saying it contained a human head. Thinking it was some sick joke, Victor opened the sack himself, only to freeze when a lifeless eye stared back at him. Horrified, he let out a startled cry, threw the sack away, and struggled to catch his breath shaken to the core. When he demanded an explanation, Damien told him to first focus on delivering both the head and the book, promising to explain everything afterward. Though nearly scared out of his wits, Victor reluctantly agreed. Not long after, Damien arrived at the gates of the Dark Snake headquarters and boldly introduced himself. The guards at first dismissed the Haxan name, but quickly changed their tone once they realized he was the very person their boss had warned them about. Damien instantly picked up on the fact that they already knew who he was and pressed them to let him inside. To Victor's shock, they actually complied. But right as Damien was being allowed entry, one of the guards suddenly fired a flare into the sky. Within moments, the entire compound swarmed with assassins and bounty hunters, all surrounding Damien with their weapons aimed at him. According to them, this was the welcoming gift prepared by their boss. Yet even while completely encircled, Damien stayed calm, confident that they were about to regret their decision. Meanwhile, inside the headquarters, Cedric, leader of the Dark Snake, was entertaining the landward governor and his drunken knight over lunch. The governor, clearly enjoying both the food and the atmosphere, casually granted Cedric control over the city's red light district. Cedric was thrilled by the offer, though a bit concerned someone else might oppose it. But the governor quickly assured him that he had the authority to silence anyone who dared to protest. The drunken knight, slumped in his seat, tried offering his help with something, but Cedric brushed him off, saying he was already doing his part by protecting them and shouldn't waste energy on smaller matters. Embarrassed by the remark, the knight quieted down, while both he and the governor seemed ready to go along with whatever Cedric wanted. Cedric, meanwhile, played along smoothly, keeping them hooked while secretly only entertaining them, so he wouldn't have to bow to their power later. His true ambition went far beyond controlling just a district. He intended to claim the entire city. Their lunch was interrupted when one of Cedric's men rushed in, urgently calling for him. Annoyed, Cedric stepped out, only to hear that it was about Damien. He shouted Damien's name so loudly that even the governor heard from inside. Rage boiled in him as he realized the dark mage he had relied on had turned out to be worthless. Still, he waved it off, confident that Damien had walked straight into his own death trap. And even if things somehow went wrong, Cedric had someone who owed him a favor, someone who would make sure the job was finished. But when Cedric stepped outside to check, he was stunned. His assassin lay defeated on the ground while Damien stood there completely unharmed. The sight shook him. He had always believed Damien Haxan was nothing more than the useless son of a viscount, but this clearly wasn't the case. The realization even made him wonder if Damien had been the one who took down his dark mages earlier. Panic set in, and he hurried back inside to gather reinforcements. Outside, one of the mages attacked Damien with a blazing fireball from their staff, only for Damien to counter it with his sword. Channeling his countless thunder technique, he deflected the blast and hurled it back, the rebound exploding in a fiery burst that reduced the mages to charred corpses. It looked like all of them were down until Damien suddenly sensed danger from behind. He turned just in time to avoid a devastating sword strike that smashed into the ground, sending up a violent shockwave. Even though he avoided the hit, the aura was so intense it scorched the tips of his hair. As the dust settled, a knight radiating deadly intent appeared before him, and Damien could immediately tell this man was a formally ranked knight. Soon after, more soldiers arrived and surrounded him. What shocked Damien most was that these weren't mercenaries. They were official city troops, the very ones meant to maintain public order. That revelation told him everything. Moments later, the governor stormed onto the scene, accusing Damien of disturbing the peace at the city's heart. Cedric stood smugly beside him, while the governor publicly declared Damien would be punished not only for targeting a respected businessman like Cedric Bigcap, but also for attacking and killing his men. The townsfolk looked on, confused why their governor was siding with that glutton. Cedric, confident at the governor's side, believed Damien was finally in real trouble. But Damien didn't waver. He glared at Cedric, recognizing him as the Black Snake leader, and openly called him out. While he knew Cedric had connections, seeing this level of influence was unbelievable. He even mocked the governor for siding with that double cheeseburger of a man. Unbothered, the governor demanded Damien surrender, but the boy refused, insisting he had committed no crime. Growing impatient, the governor ordered his knight, Robert, to take him down. Robert stepped forward, commanding Damien to submit to arrest. But Damien's fearless eyes unsettled him. Taking it as arrogance, Robert swung his sword in a flash. Damien dodged narrowly, the strike crashing into the ground and sending rubble flying. Damien knew provoking a knight at this level wouldn't make things easy. Robert pressed on, and his powerful blow sent Damien flying. Damien managed to land on his feet, though the strike rattled him even after he tried to deflect it. As the duel dragged on, Damien silently hoped for backup, but Robert gave him no breathing room, attacking with relentless speed and swinging his massive axe with crushing force. Just as the weapon was about to strike him, someone suddenly leapt in, blocking the attack head-on. The impact was so strong it knocked Robert's axe flying. Shocked, Robert demanded to know who interfered. When the figure revealed herself, everyone froze. It was a muscle mommy paladin. Damien finally breathed a sigh of relief. Reinforcements had arrived, and Victor was the one who made it happen. Cedric quickly realizes that the appearance of a paladin means the church is now officially involved, and they might already be aware of the Dark Mage's ties to recent incidents. As it turns out, Damien had cleverly sent Victor to the church carrying the Dark Mage's severed head, and Victor carried out the task exactly as instructed, ultimately saving Damien from suspicion. A few hours earlier, Victor had arrived at the church drenched in sweat that smelled of fried oil, hauling both a sack and a book Damien had given him. He handed them to a nun, explaining that they were evidence of someone cooperating with Dark Mages. The moment she inspected the book, she sensed the sinister energy radiating from it. Then, when her eyes landed on a particular symbol inside, her face shifted to shock. Without hesitation, she snatched the sack from Victor, and as soon as she uncovered the severed head, she immediately recognized it as belonging to the long-hunted officer of Yulon. In that instant, she stripped away her nun's habit, revealing a muscular, commanding figure underneath, and demanded to know who had sent Victor with these items. Now, in the present, she seems almost eager to finally meet Damien. She assures everyone that the church will handle the matter from this point forward, and Damien politely agrees. It's precisely the outcome he had been hoping for. Paladins, known for their devotion, charity, and compassion, turn into relentless, almost fanatical crusaders whenever demons or dark arts are involved. They are, after all, the frontline warriors of the church. With their involvement, Damien knows he has secured the church's support. As these thoughts run through his mind, the paladin steps forward and addresses the gathered citizens. She declares that because there is proof of someone in the city colluding with dark mages, the church will be conducting a full investigation, and, until it's complete, they will be taking control of the city. This immediately unsettles the governor, since the kingdom had granted the city the right to self-rule. But the paladin cuts him off sharply, reminding him that the church holds authority that even surpasses the kingdom's, and besides, both he and his knight are prime suspects. Her words leave them stunned, but the true blow lands when she points directly at Cedric, accusing them of sheltering the man who aided dark mages and lived among them. Cedric denies it on the spot, but the paladin presents the book as evidence. Inside are detailed records of Cedric buying supplies for the dark mage. Furious, Cedric realizes the bastard had written everything down, leaving him exposed. The soldiers begin turning against him, and though Cedric and his men beg for mercy, it's already far too late. The paladin orders them to be arrested for questioning. As guards drag them away, the governor catches sight of Damien and suddenly understands he was the one who orchestrated this. Now torn between rage and fear, the governor doesn't know what the church might do to him next. Meanwhile, Cedric makes one desperate attempt to escape judgment. He tries to provoke the governor's knight, urging him to act instead of letting some kid ruin them. The knight hesitates, then suddenly snaps. Breaking free from the church guards, he rushes straight at the paladin in an attempt to kill her and escape. But his strike misses entirely. In a flash, the paladin counters with a crushing punch to his stomach so powerful it kills him instantly. The paladin declares that anyone who dares oppose God will suffer divine punishment. Watching this brutal outcome, Cedric immediately falls to his knees, while the governor still struggles to resist. The boys, meanwhile, sit back and enjoy the spectacle, amused to see the mighty leader of the Black Snake gang kneeling in front of the crowd. Quietly, the boy gives thanks to Victor. From what he can sense, the paladin is far stronger than he first assumed. Judging by her aura and sheer presence, she is most likely an Azure Flame apprentice. The Azure Flame is recognized as the church's strongest warrior, celebrated for defeating countless formidable foes. While Damien drifts in a thought, the paladin calls out to him directly, thanking him for taking down the dark mage of Yulon. She assures him that the church acknowledges his efforts and that he won't face any charges. She even reveals that the church knows Damien contacted them not only to report the Dark Mage, but also to use the incident as cover for his attack on the Black Snake faction. Hearing this, Damien apologizes, explaining that the Dark Mage had threatened his family. Touched by this reason, the Paladin agrees to clear him of any wrongdoing. She also confirms that the bounty for the Dark Mage's head, 1,000 gold coins, will be rewarded to him. Though such a sum could buy a small castle, Damien doesn't ask for the money. Instead, he requests something else, one of the church's mana cultivation techniques. This request catches the Paladin off guard. Despite his obvious strength, he still seeks advanced training. But Damien knows the truth. While he managed to defeat the Dark Mage using his authority skill, he won't be able to survive the trials ahead without further growth. For that, he desperately needs the advanced mana technique used by the Paladins. He admits that he has only learned the basic version so far and now wants to master the higher stage. This revelation shocks the Paladin. Achieving such power with only the basics is nearly unheard of, yet she can clearly feel the overwhelming aura radiating from him. His victory over the Dark Mage only strengthens her impression of him. Impressed by his potential, she offers something even greater than what he asked for, an invitation to become a Paladin himself. To her surprise, Damien declines. She can't understand why he would turn down such an honorable role, one that is notoriously hard to earn and considered a privilege granted only to a select few chosen to serve God. She insists the title is not easily obtained. But Damien isn't particularly devout, and more importantly, he refuses to become the church's pawn. Of course, he can't say that openly. Instead, he modestly claims he is unworthy of the title, pretending that his only wish for now is to travel the world as a humble seeker of truth. Much to Victor's shock, the act works flawlessly. The Paladin seems genuinely moved by Damien's humility. Taken in by his words, she grants him access to the mana technique and warmly invites him to visit the church whenever he wishes. Finally, she introduces herself as Agnes, the first apprentice of the Azure Flame. Damien respectfully acknowledges her name and asks permission to settle one final matter. She looks confused until she sees him march over to Cedric and land a devastating punch that knocks the breath out of him. Without pause, Damien follows it with a vicious kick that sends Cedric crashing across the street. Only then does he feel truly satisfied. With that, Damien and Victor complete exactly what they came for. Meanwhile, back at the Lion Bloom family estate, Erwin's father rushed to his son after hearing about the incident. Erwin, trembling with fear, insisted that Damien had tried to kill him with a fork. Hearing this drove his father into a rage. Demanding to know who dared to harm his son, he was stunned when the guards revealed it was none other than Damien of House Haxon. The thought of a so-called lowlife like Damien defeating his son through what he considered underhanded tricks only fueled his fury further. In his anger, he began smashing furniture across the room, consumed by rage, before ordering his men to drag Damien before him like a dog without delay. At the same time, in the Haxon household, Muscle Mommy arrived with her people and greeted Damien's father. The sight of them instantly set him off, furious that his son had not only caused trouble, but also brought what he considered a band of lunatics into their home. Agnes, however, remained composed and politely explained that their visit was connected to the investigation of a heretic. Despite his irritation, Damien's father showed concern over whether their house could handle 4 more guests. Yet, the problem quickly resolved itself when the house mysteriously expanded after Agnes offered gold. Agnes thanked Damien for allowing them to stay. He hadn't expected her to make such a request, and even less so when she mentioned having personal questions for him, supposedly as part of spreading the gospel. His parents overheard and immediately misread the situation as flirtation, which only embarrassed Damien further. Eventually, Agnes got to her real point. She handed him the mana training technique he had asked for, along with a sword technique that perfectly complemented it. These 2 manuals, a powerful destructive sword style and an advanced energy cultivation method, were unlike anything Damien had encountered, even in his previous life. As he skimmed one of the books, Agnes began rambling about how difficult it had been to acquire them, emphasizing the effort she went through for his sake. She even revealed that after reporting to her master, the Azure Flame himself had expressed interest in Damien joining the Paladins. Once more, she extended the invitation for him to join their order. But, as always, Damien refused. Agnes didn't push. Instead, she simply smiled, reminded him that he could always rely on her if needed, and then left. Watching her leave, Damien couldn't shake his unease. One thing was certain, she was a fanatic. Elsewhere, within the ruined cave of the Dark Mage, church investigators were carefully combing through the remains. One of them, visibly unsettled, admitted he couldn't believe a boy like Damien had managed to defeat a trained Dark Mage. The other investigator shared the doubt, but noted that Lady Agnes herself hadn't voiced any concerns. Still, the matter weighed heavily on both of them. As they debated, Agnes arrived and directly addressed their worries. She admitted their skepticism was fair, but assured them she believed Damien's account. When one of them argued that they still couldn't understand how he managed it, Agnes explained that they had already received his full testimony. She revealed that when his servant delivered the severed head, she too had her doubts about his ability. That was why she stayed behind to secretly observe him during the assassin ambush. To her astonishment, Damien had completely overpowered his attackers. The most shocking part was when he deflected a fireball with nothing but his sword. Both investigators were floored, but Agnes pointed out that some warriors, upon reaching a certain level, could indeed repel magic attacks through sheer skill and aura control. One investigator speculated that Damien might already be a sword master, but Agnes remained uncertain, though convinced he was at least a highly gifted warrior. She even admitted that after Yulan's defeat, she had considered taking Damien to meet her master, believing he could prove invaluable to the church. With that, she ordered them firmly to drop their doubts and continue their work. Outside the Haxon estate, a knight representing House Lion Bloom shows up, leading along with him 2 apprentice knights. He double-checks the location, and one of the younger knights gives a nod to confirm. The knight then restates their mission, to arrest Damien of House Haxon. According to him, this should be an easy job, but he makes it clear he intends to make Damien suffer. For him, it's all about personal revenge for Erwin's earlier humiliation. While speaking, he spots an old man, barely hanging on like he's got 1 HP left, walking past. He calls out, asking if the man belongs to Viscount Haxon's household. When the old man confirms, the knight wastes no time and cuts him down in an instant. Like, seriously, what did the poor grandpa even do? FS in the chat. The knight justifies it by claiming it's disrespectful for a lowly servant to not bow before the lion crest. One of the apprentices quietly realizes the old man might have been blind, but the commander doesn't care at all. Without even a shred of guilt, he orders his men to drag Damien out of the estate and to slaughter everyone else once they get inside. The knights immediately charge forward, rushing straight toward Victor, who's casually at the front gate, just cleaning like nothing's happening. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Lady Agnes and her team stand together, casually chatting. Agnes explains that the site they were investigating ended up collapsing, which made collecting intel much harder than expected. Still, she reassures them that it's fine because everyone did a solid job. Then, suddenly, something strange catches their eyes, something so unusual it stops them completely. On top of a rock sits a lone figure, calmly displaying magic in a way that looks absolutely mesmerizing. Their jaws drop in shock as they stare. Agnes herself freezes in disbelief, unable to figure out how this is even possible. She finds it extraordinary, even though she doesn't understand what kind of technique it is. In her head, she starts piecing it together. The destructive energy technique she had given to Damien must actually be a cultivation method. And if someone takes it to the peak, it supposedly lets the user freely absorb surrounding mana. What stuns her the most is that Damien has already reached such a high level in just a matter of hours. Snapping out of his focused state, Damien looks down to find 3 stunned onlookers, Agnes and her team, staring up at him like curious baboons. Agnes can't stop herself and rushes straight over to him. Damien, calm and casual, glances at her and asks if their investigation is finished. At this point, Damien feels pretty damn good about the book in his hands, completely engrossed in its contents. Agnes, keeping a close watch on him, can't help but notice how impressive his progress has been. Damien realizes then that Agnes wasn't exaggerating earlier. The book really is as rare as she said. It's the real deal, nearly impossible to get, and even harder to master. Since Damien was a swordsman in his past life, traditional sword techniques don't mean much to him anymore. But this cultivation method? That's a game changer. Something truly useful, even for someone like him. Thinking about it, The destructive energy technique was specifically designed to offset the insane mana drain caused by the destructive sword technique. Luckily, it works differently. It gathers mana much faster than most techniques and can even temporarily absorb external mana from the surroundings. That makes it a powerful weapon, especially for Damien, who needs that kind of fuel for high-level combat without burning himself out. As Lady Agnes and Damien exchange looks, time itself seems to pause. The Snow-White beauty blushes lightly, while Damien, the weirdo, casually breaks the silence by pointing out that it's already dinner time. He suggests they head back together. But right then, Damien suddenly picks up on a sharp, killing intent. His instincts scream that the vermin has arrived. Without delay, he tells Agnes he has an urgent matter to handle and will head out first. He politely suggests that she return at her own pace. Agnes is left standing there, stunned, as she watches him vanish at incredible speed, using only the tiniest amount of mana. It dawns on her that he must be controlling it with unbelievable precision. Quietly, she wonders just how far Damien's limits really stretch. Meanwhile, over at House Haxon, chaos has erupted. Knight Lavender is relentlessly pummeling Victor, driving a brutal punch into his stomach that sends him collapsing to the ground, pleading for mercy. But Lavender isn't done. He keeps hurling curses with each blow, while Garrick and Opulpus stand by, treating the whole savage scene like some twisted form of entertainment. Victor's cries echo, but neither of them shows the slightest hint of pity. That's when Viscount Paul bursts onto the scene, shouting for the knights to stop at once. Garrick immediately recognizes him. Paul Haxon, the Viscount himself. Paul rushes to Victor's side, cradling the battered and unconscious man in his arms, his face burning with fury. Demanding answers, he berates the knights for striking down a mere civilian, especially after the devastation their estate has already inflicted on House Lionbloom. Compared to that, Victor's actions are nothing. Garrick steps forward coldly, declaring that the Marquis of Lionbloom demands Damien Haxon. He warns that if they don't hand over the young master, House Haxon's lands will pay the price. Though Paul anticipated retaliation, the scale of this demand catches him off guard. Still, he stands firm, refusing to give in. He dismisses the threat as a bluff, declaring he will never hand over his son. In fact, he's convinced that even if he did, Lionbloom would burn their estate to the ground anyway. With Garrick, grinding his teeth in frustration, vows that Paul will regret such foolishness. With no other options left, Garrick orders his men to tear everything apart until Damien shows himself. The Viscount roars for them to stop, but suddenly a chilling voice cuts through the uproar, mocking whether these vermin have completely lost their minds. At once, the entire area falls silent as a dark, toxic purple aura creeps in. Garrick feels the suffocating pressure, but can't identify the man behind such monstrous energy. Meanwhile, Opulpus and Lavender are frozen stiff, their bodies locked by fear. Calmly, Damien steps forward, kneeling beside Victor to check his breathing. One glance at his servant's battered state fuels his rage. With a voice sharp yet steady, he tells the knights they should count themselves lucky. Victor's body is tough enough to endure. If he had died, Damien would have slaughtered them all on the spot without hesitation. Garrick stiffens under the sheer menace of that threat and finally realizes who he's dealing with. The infamous Damien Haxon himself, bold enough to stand against the Marquis. But the brute has had enough. He snarls at his knights to break Damien's legs and force him to kneel. Opulpus and Lavender instantly spring into action, advancing in perfect sync. But Damien is faster. In a flash, he seizes Lavender's arm, twisting it viciously until the knight screams in agony, before driving a crushing punch into his chest that sends him flying like discarded garbage. Opulpus charges in to land a hit, but he's instantly shut down with a brutal kick to the chin that launches him away like trash. Damien isn't holding anything back now. He's fully ready to unleash his powers. That's when Garrick, the official knight of the Lionbloom family, steps forward and makes his way toward Damien. He's shocked that Damien isn't falling for Lord Irwin's cheap tricks, but what really bothers him is how effortlessly Damien demolished Opus. Those insane skills were the last thing Garrick expected from him. Damien, though, just brushes it off, saying it's not that serious. But suddenly Garrick flips into this dramatic revelation mode, acting like all the clues just lined up perfectly. Damien has no idea what he's talking about, and then the blonde, gorilla-like knight blurts out that Damien isn't really Damien Haxon at all. He's an imposter. Viscount Haxon, who's holding Victor, is stunned by such a ridiculous claim and thrown into even more confusion. Even Damien himself looks disgusted that this overgrown gorilla could think he'd ever pull a stunt like that. Yet Garrick keeps shouting, insisting Damien must stop lying, saying he's not the kind of person who would fall into traps. To him, this is clearly some scheme cooked up by the field dogs to block the lion blooms from rising in power. The rant keeps dragging on, with Garrick hammering the same point. That Damien isn't the real Damien Haxon. At this point, Damien is just getting bored of the nonsense. Garrick calls him a poser, just some hired thug sent to sabotage Lord Irwin and smear the good name of House Lionbloom. His frustration grows, and he reaches for his sword, calling the others a bunch of low-born scum for daring to throw dirt on the lion blooms and cross them. Damien can't believe this wannabe King Kong is working with a brain the size of a marble. Meanwhile, Lavender is lying on the ground, faking unconsciousness just to avoid getting caught in the chaos. Viscount Haxon calls out to his son, while Victor quietly prays for Lord Damien's victory over Garrick. That's when Garrick finally unsheathes his sword and charges straight at Damien, clearly going for a clean head strike. He knows this so-called fake Damien has skills, but in his mind, the guy's luck is about to run out. The old fool's got his plan all figured out. The instant Damien closes in by even half a step, the moment he gets in a striking distance, Garrick thinks he'll be split in two. With that in mind, Garrick lunges, swinging his blade straight for Damien's neck to cleave him. Damien, however, sidesteps in a flash, grinning. He knows the lion blooms didn't send some joke. They sent a proper knight. The gorilla is stunned that this pretender just parried his strike, but shrugs it off as luck. Furious that his blows keep being deflected, the knight rushes Damien again, this time slamming down a fiery wave with his sword and daring the kid to stop something that actually burns. Damien stands unfazed and blocks the attack as if it were nothing but a puff of air, taunting the blonde brute for being slow for his size. That finally pushes Garrick past his limit. Then it's Damien's turn. He draws his sword and bolts forward at full tilt, aiming straight for Garrick's brow. He moves so fast Garrick can barely track him, much less block his moves. In an instant, Damien plants a hard kick in his face, sending Garrick skidding across the ground like trash. The big man lies there, gasping, while Damien casually says the kick was for Victor. Garrick drags himself up using a bloodied arm and mutters curses, then charges again with his blade burning. Even a lion's famed sword of speed can't shake Damien's calm. Damien meets it head-on, letting the tips clash. The impact shatters Garrick's sword into a spray of metal, leaving his jaw open mid-charge. Before Garrick can react, Damien drives his blade into Garrick's shoulder and slices it clean off. Pain floods Garrick's mind as he coughs blood and collapses. Viscount and Victor stare, stunned that Damien could overpower an official knight. Garrick complains about the pain and presses his wound, but Damien slides his blade up to the gorilla's face, threatening to lop it off. Suddenly the old fool is begging for his life, clearly not knowing who he'd crossed. Damien tells him bluntly he's Damon Haxon and should have pleaded sooner. It's too late now. He messed with Damien's family and humiliated his servant. Begging won't save him. Garrick scrambles to apologize for what happened earlier, but Damien isn't impressed by his apology style. So the ace turns and walks away, leaving the blonde fool to his father and Victor, who both look more than ready to lay into him. Garrick, the Lion Bloom family's official knight, shuffles out in pure disgrace with his cronies Opulpus and Lavender. Their bodies ruined, all because of a man named Damon Haxon who even cut off Garrick's hand. Damien had given his less-than-pretty servant Victor full leave to beat them up. Victor still felt unsatisfied and wondered about landing more blows, but Damon warned that going further would kill Garrick. Victor casually suggests chopping off another limb or two since Garrick looks like he's about to cry. The old fool drags himself away like some horror-struck wreck, and Damien admits he kind of enjoyed treating Garrick like a toy. At that moment, Viscount Haxon steps in and says enough. On cue, Garrick collapses at the Viscount's feet, owning up to his guilt and begging forgiveness for insulting them. But Paul won't let it slide easily. He insists the apology must mean something after all the trouble Garrick caused. He points out that if his son hadn't had that strength, their lands could have been wiped out and the Marquis family would have torn them apart. Garrick slams his head to the ground, bowing and pleading for mercy, but Viscount Haxon's anger remains. With a single look from Paul, Damien sheathes his blade, admitting he never intended to kill this trash. Killing Garrick would damage relations with House Lion Bloom and sever ties. Damien confesses that if it were only him, He'd challenge the Marquis alone without hesitation. But he can't act alone when he must protect his own family. He's not stupid. He knows sending these idiots back as there guarantees retaliation. Now figuring out what to do with this troublesome trio is just plain tiring. Out of nowhere, Lady Agnes bursts in, calling for Damien and demanding an explanation for what's happening. Damien is completely caught off guard by her sudden arrival. Then it dawns on him that she could actually be very useful at this moment. Quickly, he briefs her on the entire chaotic situation, and she immediately grasps what's going on. Once she understands Damien's concerns, she fully commits to supporting him. Damien asks if she has any clever plans, and after a pause, she expresses gratitude to House Haxon for managing to take down one of Yulon's executive officers for the very first time, an impressive achievement. Seeing that success, Lady Agnes decides she can officially acknowledge House Haxon as an allied household, which eases Damien's worries considerably. Meanwhile, Viscount Haxon and Victor exchange a knowing look, both realizing that if this plan succeeds, their family might avoid a serious crisis. At the same time, Damien puts on his most charming expression, trying to persuade Lady Agnes to approve his request. She's clearly impressed by him and ready to grant the favor. Deep down, Damien had been aiming for this outcome all along, protection from the church. In the background, Paul and Victor watch their son's flirtatious tactics work flawlessly on the noblewoman. Without hesitation, Lady Agnes agrees to Damien's request. Damien then makes sure everyone hears his next orders clearly, instructing that this situation be reported to House Lion Bloom immediately. He tells the troublesome trio of knights to return and inform their boss that House Haxon is now under the church's protection. Damien makes it clear that if they attempt to force anything again, the church would respond with full force. He glares at them silently, giving them a final, deadly warning, and then tells them to leave immediately. Garrick and his companions, Opulpus and Lavender, sprint toward the exit as if their lives depend on it, grateful for Damien's mercy as they flee. Victor is invigorated by the scene and mocks them, declaring that they got lucky today, clearly thrilled to see Damien's strength make those brutes run with their tails between their legs. At last, the family can catch their breath and relax a little. However, Paul remains cautious, reminding everyone that they still need to plan their next steps. For now, he decides to call a family meeting to discuss everything further. Once all the top officials had gathered, the meeting officially began. Paul started by briefly addressing the growing issue of their conflict with House Lion Bloom, which had become an increasing concern. Abel, dressed in the nerdiest way possible, turned to his father and questioned the point of the meeting, arguing that since the church was already on their side, there was no real reason to worry about the feud. He didn't see the need to stress over it now that they had the church watching their backs. Louise, however, interjected, pointing out that they couldn't realistically expect the church to fully protect them or intervene if things escalated. Paul reflected on her words and agreed, explaining that the church generally avoids deep involvement in noble affairs, particularly ones that could trigger political backlash. He also noted that the true power of the Lion Bloom family wasn't just in their military strength, it ran far deeper. The Viscount was fully aware of the power struggle they were in with the Lion Blooms, who could crush smaller, noble families like theirs in countless ways if they wished. Considering the wisest course of action, Paul decided the most realistic strategy was to pay them off, a substantial sum to keep House Haxon out of trouble. Failing that, their second option would be to seek protection from a high-ranking noble capable of shielding them from the Lion Bloom's reach. Lady Agnes listened and understood that realistically, seeking another great house's protection might be the safest move. Still, she offered another possibility. Without hesitation, she suggested her preferred solution, making Damien a paladin. According to her, if Damien became a paladin, it would solve all their problems at once. Damien's expression revealed his irritation. He hadn't expected this absurdity to be thrown into the middle of a serious meeting, but now that everyone was staring at him, it was too late to back out. He flatly refused the idea. Paul didn't push the matter either. He respected his son's decision and considered the suggestion off the table. Abel, on the other hand, visibly flinched at the idea. Suddenly, he slammed the table, demanding his father's attention. When Paul turned to him, Abel challenged why he had accepted Damien's refusal so easily, arguing that making Damien a paladin would end all their problems. It was clear that Abel was trying to manipulate his brother, forcing him onto a path that would prevent future clashes. Damien immediately recognized his brother's interference and was utterly disgusted. Abel noticed Damien's expression and snapped, questioning the nasty look. The nerd then shifted all blame onto Damien, insisting the entire commotion was his fault and that he should take responsibility. Abel demanded that Damien become a paladin to fix the mess. Before Abel could continue, Paul shot him a glare, so sharp it seemed to shake the room, reminding him that a guest was present and that he needed to behave. That silenced Abel instantly. Paul recognized that Damien's actions had indeed triggered the feud with the Lion Blooms, but he also knew it wasn't entirely his son's fault. Then Paul revealed the real cause. Lion Bloom's second son had lewd intentions toward Louise, and if Damien hadn't intervened, the man wouldn't have backed off. Essentially, Damien had protected Louise in place of a father who was powerless to act. Milda and Louise quietly comforted Paul, seeing the burden he carried. At that moment, the proud Viscount Haxon rose, approached Damien, and patted him on the shoulder, commending him for his actions. He expressed genuine pride in his son for defending the family's honor, standing up against the insult to their house, and giving those loafers exactly what they deserved. This unexpectedly sparked a warm feeling in Damien's heart, to which he quietly replied that he had simply done what needed to be done. Paul then decided to take control, telling everyone to let him act as the father for once. But just as he was about to, the butler arrived with news that someone from House Goldpixie had come. Paul was baffled as to what business they could have now. It turned out that Damien had borrowed money using the family's wheat fields as collateral, and the repayment deadline had already passed. The real shock was that the fields had already been sold. Damien was completely blindsided, never expecting his luck to turn so suddenly. Paul's face darkened with rage, and in a full-blown fury, he grabbed Damien by the neck, choking him while cursing his very existence. Later, a man lifts his hat briefly, showing respect to young Master Damien and wishing him well. Damien narrows his eyes, trying to place the face, and soon realizes it's Orland Maisai, the West Branch manager of Dash and Cash, standing there with his personal guard. It's been a long time since their last meeting, but Orland has shown up now for official business, conveniently on the exact repayment date they had agreed on earlier. With his usual sly attitude, he pulls out the contract Damien had signed, pointing out that the land of Damien's family was used as collateral. He smirks while explaining that this was the only way he could confidently lend him the money. Meanwhile, Damien starts piecing it all together, realizing at last that Orland had been the one who tricked him into giving away the land deed in the first place. He can't stop wondering how he was ever foolish enough to agree. Fixing his gaze on Orland, Damien demands to know the actual amount he owes. Orland calmly states that the borrowed sum was 200 gold, but with interest it has now reached 300 gold. The number hits Damien like a lightning bolt, leaving him stunned, his jaw practically dropping. In disbelief, he asks if the amount is even correct, but Orland, still smug and composed, tells him to check the contract if he doubts it. Damien racks his brain, barely remembering why he borrowed the money at all. It feels like something that happened a lifetime ago. But one truth is painfully clear. His family doesn't have that kind of gold lying around. The realization crushes him, as he imagines dragging his entire household into ruin, reduced to begging on the streets like filthy barbarians, starving and stripped of dignity. The thought alone weighs heavily on him. Orland then declares coldly that if the debt isn't cleared by the end of the day, the land pledged as collateral will legally belong to Dash and Cash. Damien snaps back, reminding him that he said the collateral was only symbolic. But Orland, unbothered, admits he had said that, before pointing out that circumstances have changed. Duke Goldpixie has ordered them to collect every outstanding debt without exception, whether from nobles or commoners. He even advises Damien to find the money, casually asking if he has it ready. Damien, shaken to his core, admits he has prepared nothing for repayment. That's exactly the answer Orland wanted to hear. Though he pretends to look worried, inside he's delighted. With a careless attitude, he drops on the couch as if it's his own, remarking that Damien should have thought twice before borrowing in the first place. Snapping his fingers, he summons two massive, gorilla-like bodyguards who step forward, glaring at Damien with deadly intensity. Orland insists on taking matters into his own hands now, fully aware Damien can't pay back the debt. Though he loves collecting money, what excites him even more is watching arrogant nobles collapse, reduced to begging, disgraced, and trampled underfoot. The very thought of Damien's downfall makes his whole body tingle with anticipation, sending a chilling thrill through him. Moments like these are what he lives for. Meanwhile, In a completely different atmosphere, Milda and Louise are sitting calmly, sipping tea, while the Viscount paces back and forth like a man on the edge, completely consumed by stress. Off to the side, Abel sulks like a gloomy nerd, probably blaming his own existence. Milda eventually tries to settle things, gently asking the Viscount to sit before he wears a hole into the floor. Even Louise chimes in, telling her father to relax, but he's already at breaking point, practically tearing at his hair with frustration, overwhelmed by the mess his sons dragged the family into. Paul looks ready to snap. He knows they can't just sit idle when their future is dangling by a thread. Milda, still calm as ever, takes another sip of tea and reminds them to trust Damien. He's already taken charge, and now the only option is to wait. Louise agrees, pointing out that Damien has never failed them whenever he steps forward. The Viscount admits that's true, but insists it's because Damien's swordsmanship is unmatched. Still, fighting and negotiating are two very different things. Yet before the words even settle, Damien proves his point in brutal fashion. He smashes Orlan's sidekick's face straight into the ground with enough force to crack the floor beneath them. Orlan is left stunned, frozen in shock, as chills creep down his spine. After flooring one of the so-called King Kongs, Damien knows his father will blow a fuse again, especially since they just repaired that wall. The other bodyguard doesn't hesitate. He whips out his blade and lunges at Damien, spitting curses and aiming to slice his head clean off. But Damien doesn't so much as blink. He catches the strike mid-motion, seizes the man by the throat, and chokes him right there. With a glare full of disdain, he's offended that such lowlife dared to raise a weapon against a noble. Calling it nothing more than self-defense, Damien now has a perfect excuse. Turning his eyes to Orlan with a cruel smirk, he makes the man squirm in terror. As Damien steps closer, he casually orders Orlan to loosen up his legs, and the frightened man obeys instantly, like a scared pup. Then Damien shifts tone, drops the aggression, and speaks more civilly, admitting he can't make the payment right now. Shaken to his core, Orlan doesn't even protest anymore. But then Damien grips his shoulder hard, leaning close, saying he'd prefer to pay in another way. Cold sweat drips down Orlan's back, the chill in his spine worsening as dread takes over. The following day, Abel gloomily tells his father that violence triumphed over justice, and that truth alone breaks his heart. In contrast, Milda and Louise warmly chat with Damien, reminding him to eat well during his journey and to take care of himself. Abel, still sulking, drops to his knees and stares at the sky, asking God why things had to turn out this way. But Paul immediately cuts him off, snapping at him to cheer for his brother instead of bawling like a baby. Even so, the Viscount privately questions whether their plan will succeed in the long run. Nearby, Lady Agnes expresses regret that they must part ways now. Damien thanks her sincerely for everything she's done. The pale beauty mentions that their investigation is nearly finished, and they'll likely return home tomorrow. She wishes him a blessed journey, and Damien nods gratefully. Then she slyly adds that, just in case he changes his mind, but Damien already knows what she's hinting at. Meeting her eyes firmly, he assures her nothing will ever change his resolve about her request. Soon after, Victor finishes loading Damien's luggage, and with the farewells done, Damien climbs into the carriage. Surprisingly, Orlan is joining him, promising to personally ensure the trip faces no disruptions. Damien actually approves of this sudden change in attitude and gives him a nod, even tossing in a casual request. If Orlan's really serious, he wants lobster for lunch. Victor hops aboard as well, and with everything settled, the carriage finally sets off, rolling straight toward House Gold Pixie. The grand carriage finally came to a halt, allowing the three-man group to step out and stretch after the long ride. Before them stood the opulent ducal mansion, home to the Gold Pixie family, widely regarded as the richest household in the entire kingdom, and clearly living up to that reputation. Damien turned toward his personal servant, who also doubled as his loan shark, and gave him thanks for the smooth journey. He could easily sense that Orlan Dempsey was boiling inside from having been treated like a mutt throughout the entire trip. With a forced grin plastered on his face, Orlan offered the young noble polite words while secretly damning him to hell in his mind. With steady confidence, Damien moved forward, ready to execute his next plan. He was escorted directly inside to request an audience with the influential master of the estate, Adam Gold Pixie, Duke of the Apple Kingdom. The Duke studied this youngster from the Haxon family with a sharp, measuring gaze. Damien, in turn, played his part perfectly, carrying himself with the refined manners of a noble. Not wasting time, the Duke demanded to know the reason behind his unexpected visit. Damien admitted outright that he had borrowed funds from the Duke's loan company and that the repayment date was looming. He also revealed that he lacked the means to repay the debt in coin. Instead, he came prepared with an alternative. Rather than money, he wanted to settle the debt by serving as the Gold Pixie Duke's representative in their long-standing feud against the Lion Bloom family. The Duke's interest was piqued, while those around him were left shocked. Adam Gold Pixie chuckled at such a bold suggestion, recognizing that the young man must have done his research and heard the latest rumors. Indeed, gossip had been spreading fast within the Apple Kingdom. A vast gold mine had recently been uncovered along the border shared by the Lion Bloom Marquisate and the Gold Pixie Duchy, reigniting their old rivalry. Tensions had escalated to the point where both sides were preparing a nightly duel meant to determine ownership of the mine once and for all. From Damien's memories of his past life, he knew the outcome clearly. Lion Bloom would utterly dominate the duel, led by their rising prodigy, and then grow immensely in wealth and power from the gold mine. Meanwhile, the Gold Pixie family would steadily lose its grip on influence. This time, however, Damien saw an opportunity. If he could secure victory for the Duke, he'd not only erase his debt, but also cripple the Lion Bloom bastards before they could rise further. Adam Gold Pixie found himself impressed by Damien's audacity. He was also aware of the boy's rumored exploits, defeating the Lion Bloom family's second son and dismantling a powerful crime syndicate in Landwalk City. Those feats certainly lent credibility to his words, and the timing of his arrival couldn't have been better, since the Duke had been struggling to find a proper champion for the duel. Damien, brimming with confidence, declared himself the ideal contender. He went so far as to claim he was the only low-born knight capable of standing against the Lion Bloom heir, even boldly asserting that he could bring down Michael Lion Bloom himself, a claim bordering on outrageous, given Michael's reputation as a once-in-a-generation genius. But Damien believed he was a different kind of monster entirely, capable of proving his worth. Even so, while he was presenting his case to be chosen as the Gold Pixie champion, one of the Duke's own knights interrupted, objecting to Damien's claims as nothing more than exaggerated tales. On top of that, it was noted that Lady Chelsea Gold Pixie was still away, actively searching for a more suitable candidate. Middle-class knight Ernst Horwitz wasn't even bothering to hide his contempt for Damien. A month had already passed since Grand Duchess Chelsea set out to recruit a knight capable of defeating Michael Lion Bloom, and her supporters were still certain she would succeed. Horwitz, meanwhile, kept trying to talk Duke Adam out of dismissing his daughter's efforts, urging him to just trust the process. The Duke listened to his retainer and acknowledged his reasoning. But Damien, standing there, suddenly felt the urge to wring the skinny knight's neck for ruining his moment. The man looked like nothing more than a chewed-up bone spat out by some orc. Still, since Adam valued the advice of his retainers, he asked Damien to argue for himself and defend his proposal. Damien knew the best way to prove his worth here was through action, so he boldly declared that not choosing him would be a colossal mistake. If the Gold Pixie family wanted victory, he was their only real option. No one Chelsea brought back could measure up. To prove it, he threw down a challenge to Horwitz. All the bony knight had to do was swing his blade at him, and Damien would block it. If he could withstand a strike from a mid-class knight, that alone should be evidence enough of his strength. The taunt worked like a charm. Horwitz, itching to put the brat in his place, was just waiting for the Duke's permission. Amused and intrigued, Adam gave his approval for a test match. Before long, the training ground was set, the two combatants glaring daggers at each other, while the Duke and his guardian observed. Victor arrived just in time to find his young master tangled up in yet another fight. He took one look at Horwitz and could already feel the knight's fury radiating. Rage baiting had clearly gone too far this time. Duke Adam's guardian knight, Jael Heinrich, presided over the match. At the signal, Horwitz stood tall and stiff, like a man with a rod shoved up his spine, and offered Damien one last chance to surrender. Damien, unfazed, only yawned and told him to get on with it. Bound by the rule of a single decisive strike, Horwitz poured every bit of his mana into his spear, forcing it to concentrate at the tip. The power gathering there was dangerous, and Damien began to worry that maybe he had pushed the guy a bit too far. With rage twisting his face, Horwitz leveled his spear at Damien with lethal intent and charged forward, momentum exploding like a thunderbolt. The opening was impressive, But Damien knew that as long as he tracked the spear's trajectory, blocking it wouldn't be hard. He raised his sword, his eyes locked on the tip, preparing for the perfect defense. But at the very last second, the spear had bent unnaturally, slipping past his guard with the slightest change of angle. It left Damien's chest exposed, and before he could react, his blade snapped clean in half under the force. Horwitz immediately knew his trap had worked. With no weapon left to absorb the blow, the spear tore forward and pierced Damien's chest, drawing blood. The Duke was stunned, and Victor's stomach twisted as he saw his young master struck. But against all expectations, Damien stayed on his feet. He looked pained, yes, but he hadn't gone down. Horwitz was dumbfounded. A mere low-class knight shouldn't have been able to withstand such a calculated strike. Breaking the tense silence, Damien wiped the blood from his chest, grinned, and asked if this was enough proof for him to be chosen as their representative. Relieved to see him conscious, Victor rushed to his master, throwing his arms around him in a tight hug that hurt worse than the spear wound itself. Damien had to shove him off because of the pain in his chest. Duke Adam came over next, clearly impressed by the performance. Taking Horwitz's full strike was no easy feat, and though Adam had doubted him at first, what he saw convinced him otherwise. He realized he had a rare gem in his hands. Turning to his retainers, the Duke proudly declared that Damien Haxon had proven himself and would officially represent the Gold Pixie family. Horwitz tried to protest, making excuses about the match, but Adam immediately silenced him with a sharp glare. The Duke was in high spirits now, and anyone who spoiled it would regret it. Shaken and humiliated, Horwitz replayed the fight in his head again and again, unable to understand it. He was sure his strike had landed clean. Honestly, Damien, in his current state, already stands above the middle ranks of the knight hierarchy. But since only low-class knights are allowed to join the upcoming duel, he has no choice but to tone down his strength and pretend to be weaker. He has to put on a convincing act so no one suspects the truth. To pull it off, he even relied on a magic shield to soften the spear's impact for just a moment, because if his timing slipped even slightly, it could have put him in real danger. The Duke examined his condition and noticed faint signs of internal damage. Adam wasn't about to let his prized new blade suffer like that. With a tap of his ring, he unlocked his subspace storage, something that must have cost a fortune, and pulled out an ornate box. From it, he offered Damien a gift, 5 small golden balance pills. The Duke had paid a hefty price to acquire these from the alchemy school. Knights typically use them during training, but they're also one of the best remedies for internal injuries. Damien accepted the gift with gratitude, showing proper respect. In that moment, the Duke secured their budding partnership, while the young Baron's scheme continued to unfold just as planned. The following day arrived. Damien had spent the night in one of the mansion's extravagant rooms, and now he headed over to check out the training facilities. He was genuinely surprised by how effective the balance pills were, since the internal injuries he suffered yesterday had practically healed overnight. He hadn't had time to explore the place before, but as expected from the Duke's household, the training grounds were packed with high-class equipment. Coming here was definitely the right choice. Finally, he could train with some real quality stuff. While he was admiring the weapon rack, an arrogant, squeaky voice suddenly called his name. Looking up, he saw a short guy who needed a platform just to stand eye level with him. Introducing himself in a flashy manner was Pavel Vermund, a low-class knight from the Gold Pixie Dukedom. Behind him stood 2 men he referred to as his sworn brothers. Together, these 3 had also been chosen to fight in the upcoming duel against the Lion Blooms. Pavel explained that they hadn't been around yesterday, since they were out training in the field, so they missed the whole incident. He boldly claimed that if they had been present, they would have handled Damien themselves and spared Sir Horwitz the trouble. To Pavel, the duel with the Lion Blooms was a matter of honor for their house, and he made it clear he hoped Damien's mediocre skills wouldn't drag the team down. Before leaving, he warned Damien not to interfere with their intense training. Damien didn't bother replying. He preferred training alone anyway. Still, he was curious to see how skilled his new teammates actually were. Once they took their positions, Pavel gave the signal with a loud harump. Leading the charge, he showed off his so-called immovable king technique, though he looked more like someone desperately holding in his bladder. Across from him, the lanky one performed his secret move, the Vermilion Bird Ascension, though it resembled more of an awkward chicken jump than anything majestic. The two clashed with wooden swords, but the strikes had no real weight behind them. Despite their weak techniques, they carried themselves as if this was some legendary duel. their 987th, no less. Breaking out of the stalemate, Pavel started waving his sword around wildly, hoping at least one hit would connect. His lanky partner had to bend and dodge like he was in the Matrix to avoid the chaotic swings. When the flailing finally stopped, the lanky one seized the chance to counter. Closing his eyes, he struck down with all his strength, landing a clean hit on Pavel's head. When he opened his eyes, he actually believed Pavel had blocked the attack with his forehead on purpose, thinking it was all part of some genius strategy. Meanwhile, Pavel stood there bleeding and crying in pain, trying his best to act tough. The two broke apart, bowed respectfully, and declared the round a draw. Soon after, the heavy-set brother stepped forward for his turn, but Pavel stuttered that he just needed a short break first. With only a month left before the duel, they somehow believed this kind of training would prepare them to crush the Lion Bloom Knights and defend the Duke's honor. Raising their flimsy wooden swords, they shouted a corny chant of all for one for all. From the sidelines, Damien watched silently, his expression darkening the longer it went on. Until now, he had only been concerned about securing his place as a representative, never considering the kind of teammates he'd be stuck with. But seeing these three clowns in action, a sense of dread crept over him. Once upon a time, he had been powerful enough to bring the world to ruin, a godlike figure feared across the land. Yet standing here, forced to rely on these buffoons, he felt more powerless than ever.